Imagine waking up on Christmas morning and not being able to put a tree in your window. Not because you don't celebrate, not because you don't believe, but because outside that window, the world doesn't celebrate with you. This is not a story about conflict. This is a story about something far more quiet, far more human, what it feels like to carry your faith, your traditions, your entire identity inside four walls, while the world outside moves on without you. Today, we're going inside the lives of Christians living in Muslim-majority countries, and what we found will stay with you. Picture the city of Karachi at night. December. The air is cooler than usual, the streets buzzing with the noise of rickshaws, vendors, and the distant call to prayer drifting through the sky. Now look closer, past the main bazaar, through a narrow lane, behind a tall wall, and you'll find something most people never notice. A small church, painted white, a single star hung above its door. Inside, a choir is practicing, softly, carefully. This is the reality of Christmas in the Muslim world, not absent, not erased, but quiet, hidden in plain sight. There are over 350 million Christians living in Muslim-majority countries today, from Pakistan to Egypt, from Indonesia to Jordan, from Nigeria to Iran. These are not visitors, these are not tourists, these are families who have lived on this land for centuries, sometimes longer than the nations themselves have existed. And yet most of the world has no idea what their December looks like. To understand this, you have to go back. Long before Islam, these lands were deeply Christian. Egypt was one of the earliest centers of Christianity in the entire world. The Coptic Church of Egypt traces its origins directly to Saint Mark the Apostle, founded in the 1st century AD. That is older than most European churches, older than Christmas traditions in Rome itself. In what is now Iraq and Syria, Christian communities existed for nearly 2,000 years before the modern borders were drawn. In Pakistan, Christians are largely descended from lower caste Hindu converts from the 19th century British colonial era, families who found dignity in faith and paid a price for it for generations. So when we ask, what is Christmas like in a Muslim country, we are not asking about a new arrival. We are asking about an ancient community trying to hold on to something precious in a world that has slowly, quietly changed around them. And that change, that shift, is where the real story begins. Meet Sarah, not her real name, but her story is real. She's 28, a school teacher in Lahore, Pakistan. Every December, she and her mother spend 3 days preparing for Christmas, decorating their small apartment, cooking traditional food, wrapping small gifts for her younger siblings. She told me something that I haven't been able to forget. We don't put our tree near the window, she said, not because we're ashamed, but because we've learned to be careful. That word, careful, carries so much weight. In Pakistan, Christians make up about 1.6% of the population, around 2.8 million people. They celebrate Christmas, yes, it is a public holiday. Churches hold services, carols are sung, families gather. But there is an invisible line that many Christians know not to cross. Don't be too loud, don't be too visible, don't invite attention. And this isn't just Pakistan. In Egypt, the Coptic Christians, who make up roughly 10% of the population, making them one of the largest Christian minorities in any Muslim-majority country, celebrate Christmas on January 7th, following the ancient Julian calendar. Millions of them, churches packed. Pope Tawadros II leads midnight mass, while Egyptian state television broadcasts it live. That is a surprising fact most people don't know. Egypt, often seen as a conservative Islamic state, officially broadcasts Christmas Mass on national television. But here is where the story gets complicated, because for every moment of official tolerance, there is a quieter reality underneath.
In Egypt, building a new church requires government approval, a process that can take decades. Some Christian families have waited 30, 40 years to legally construct a place of worship. In the meantime, they gather in apartments, in rooftops, in basements, not because they are doing anything wrong, but because the system was never built with them in mind. In Saudi Arabia, there are no churches at all, zero. Public Christian worship is completely prohibited. The roughly 1 million Christian expatriate workers, Filipinos, Indians, Americans who live and work there, celebrate Christmas entirely in private, inside compounds, behind closed doors, a small nativity scene tucked inside a bedroom, far from any window. One Filipino nurse who worked in Riyadh for 7 years described her Christmas like this. We would gather in someone's apartment, maybe 20 of us, cook rice and chicken, sing carols in whispers, and feel both grateful and sad at the same time. Grateful to be together, sad that together had to mean hidden. That contradiction, gratitude wrapped in grief, is something you find again and again in these communities. And yet, and this is the part the headlines always miss, not every Muslim-majority country looks the same. Jordan is fascinating. In Amman, Christmas decorations go up in malls, hotels host Christmas dinners. King Abdullah II has publicly attended Christmas events alongside Christian leaders. The Jordanian constitution specifically protects Christian holy sites, and Christians hold reserved seats in parliament. In Lebanon, Christmas is a national holiday celebrated by both Christians and Muslims alike. You will find Muslim families putting up trees, exchanging gifts, attending Christmas markets, because in Lebanon, Christmas is not just a religious festival anymore. It is a cultural one, woven into the national identity. In Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim-majority country, Christmas is a public holiday. Churches in Bali and Jakarta hold large open ceremonies. Indonesian Muslims sometimes voluntarily guard churches during Christmas services to protect their Christian neighbors. That image, a Muslim man in a skullcap standing outside a church on Christmas Eve, not as a threat, but as a protector, that image tells you everything about the complexity of this story. That is the thing about 1.8 billion Muslims and 350 million Christians sharing the same cities, neighborhoods, and sometimes the same blood. The reality is never as simple as the headlines want it to be. Now, let me tell you about James. James is a 45-year-old engineer in Cairo. His family has been Coptic Christian for as far back as anyone can remember. He grew up celebrating Christmas with his Muslim neighbors, joining in for the food and the laughter. His best friend since childhood, a Muslim man named Ahmed, still comes to his house every January 7th, sits at his table, and says, Eid Milad Mubarak, Blessed Christmas. But James also remembers 2011, the bombing of the Two Saints Church in Alexandria, 23 people killed on New Year's Eve. He remembers watching the news with Ahmed beside him, both of them silent, both of them afraid, but afraid of different things. James was afraid for his community. Ahmed was afraid that the world would blame his. We cried together that night, James told me, and that I will never forget. This is the emotional truth that no statistic can capture. These communities don't exist in a world of pure peace or pure persecution. They exist in the in-between, in the friendship and the fear, the celebration and the quiet grief. Here are 5 things most people don't know. 1. The oldest continuously operating Christian monastery in the world, St. Catherine's Monastery, sits in the Egyptian Sinai Desert, surrounded by Muslim land, and has been protected by Muslim rulers since the 7th century, including by a letter attributed to Prophet Muhammad himself, granting it protection. 2. In Iran, despite being an Islamic republic, Christmas is a recognized public holiday, and Armenian Christians celebrate openly in Tehran. 3. In Pakistan, Christmas Eve, sometimes called Bara Din, meaning the big day, a term used by many Muslims who simply recognize it as a significant occasion. 4. In the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi is home to one of the largest churches in the Gulf region, the new St. Francis of Assisi Church, opened in 2023, part of the Abrahamic Family House, a complex that includes a mosque, a church, and a synagogue side by side. 5. The Coptic Christian minority in Egypt has survived over 14 centuries of Islamic governance through empires, colonialism, wars, and revolutions, making them one of the most resilient religious minorities in human history. Now, here is where I want to share something honest with you. If we look at this situation clearly, without the noise of politics or the filter of fear, the truth is more layered than most people admit.
Yes, there are countries where Christians face genuine discrimination, legal barriers, and even violence. That is real. That cannot be minimized or explained away. When a community cannot build a house of worship, when they cannot practice their faith openly, when they live under laws that treat them as second-class citizens, that is a problem, a serious one, and it deserves to be named. But what is also true, and what many people outside these countries don't understand, is that the relationship between these communities is not simply oppressor and oppressed. It is ancient. It is complicated. It is full of friendship and shared meals and neighbors who show up for each other. What too many people misunderstand is that Islam, as practiced by hundreds of millions of ordinary people, has a long tradition of dhimma, protection for religious minorities. The problem is not the tradition. The problem is when governments, political movements, or extremist groups hijack that tradition and replace it with fear. What should change? Legal frameworks that treat religious minorities as lesser citizens, social cultures where discrimination is normalized, educational systems that teach children to see their neighbor's faith as a threat rather than a difference. And what should be celebrated? Every Muslim who guards a church, every government that broadcasts Christmas Mass, every neighborhood in Cairo, Amman, or Jakarta where December looks like humanity at its best. The lesson here is not about religion. It is about something older than religion. It is about what it means to be a minority, to hold something sacred inside you while the world outside doesn't always make room for it, to celebrate quietly, not out of shame, but out of survival, and to still celebrate. There is something deeply moving about a woman in Lahore who puts her Christmas tree away from the window, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, and then turns on the lights anyway, because the lights still go on. That is the message. That is what these communities teach us. Resilience is not loud. It doesn't need an audience. It burns quietly, year after year, in small apartments and ancient churches, in whispered carols and warm meals shared between people who don't share the same faith, but share the same street, the same city, the same sky. And if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to think about one thing. The next time someone tells you a simple story about Muslims or Christians or any group of human beings, ask yourself, have I seen inside their home? Have I heard their name? Do I know what their December looks like? Because the world is too complicated and too beautiful for simple stories. If this kind of storytelling means something to you, if you want to see more of the lives that don't make the headlines, then subscribe, not for the numbers, but because these stories deserve to be told and they deserve to be heard.